Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. Got a good amount to get to today. We got an interview with Patricia Traina, giving some camp updates, talk a little about her book. It was nice to finally get her on the show. Did some writing for her, so it was a long time coming. We're doing some over-unders, and we're going to do a little camp talk of ourselves. But first, Justin, how are you doing?
Hello, Bobby Skinner. How are you? I'm coming to you from New York today. New York. I'm not coming to you from New Jersey. I am here in the BDGE, Big Dogs Gotta Eat. I've talked about them before. We had them on the podcast. We had Snacks and Nick on the podcast a couple weeks ago at the headquarters today in New York. We're just having some fun. It's Nick's birthday. We had a nice little interview with Patricia Train. We talked about her book, The Big 50. She gave a lot of cool insights into players like Edmond Ingram, Ryan Conley. Who was that wide receiver that we talked about? Never heard of that wide receiver until
Alex
today.
Bachmann.
Alex Bachmann gave a lot of great takes.
It's going to be funny
him.
if Joe Judge comes over from the Patriots and all of a sudden some no-name white slot wide receiver, Alex Bachmann, and David Sills, another white receiver, all of a sudden become major contributors for our team.
Won't hear me complaining if we get major contributors, Bobby Skinner. How are you?
I'm good. Nice weekend at the beach, but we did a little bit on the yesterday's show. I will say, though, today's episode is brought to you by three really cool people, Justin. Justin, you know who these people are? One is Emperor Mayor, okay? You know him on Twitter, Emperor Mayor. He said some really nice things about us a week ago, saying, like, when he thinks about the Giants, he thinks about us.
Which is crazy. I do need to take a moment where, first of all, thank you to Emperor Mayor and thank you to the rest of our patrons, but we got that tweet. It's like when I think of the Giants, I think of Bobby and Justin. That's kind of like a surreal moment, so thank you. It's kind of crazy.
I love it, Emperor Mayor. Tim Coffey, who is definitely one of our biggest supporters. Mm-hmm. He's crazy. He loves us. He's a rabid fan of the Giants. I love him. He throws threats at other people, and you know what? I don't stop him from doing it. I enjoy it, Justin.
He wishes we were a rated R podcast. Really wishes it.
Yeah. Listen, it would be fun, but we just can't do it, Tim, even though we love you. And then the third one, this guy wasn't even a Giants fan until last offseason. In fact, I noticed him interacting with me in May of 2019 or late April. And it's Brian Porras, part of Duke Gang, came over with Daniel Jones, has been one of our biggest supporters, one of our earliest listeners. So Brian Porras. Justin, who are these people?
Who are these people? Oh, they're our newest patrons. Patreon.com/Talking Giants. For $2 a month, you can get some fun perks. I give some exclusive first looks at blogs that I publish. We do monthly giveaways for shirts, and you also get the chance to see our live streams as we record our takes. That's especially going to be really fun once we get to the season and after Giants games. So Monday night, September 14th, if you're staying up and if you're revved up after a Giants win, you get to come on and react live with us. So patreon.com/Talking Giants, $2 a month. You support us. We thank you, and we love you.
For sure. All right, Justin, let's get into some of it before I do our over-unders in the Patricia Traina interview. One, just some quick news. The Giants will be live streaming a scrimmage, or it might be previously recorded, but it'll be on TV, NBC4 if you get that. I'm going to try and because a few people have asked, I'm going to try and figure out if there is some kind of streaming site, whether it's illegal or whatnot, and we'll try and tweet it out. If you do miss it, the Giants will have it on their website like an hour after it's done. So, I need to watch it live, but if you're not like jonesing to watch it live, it will be available. So that'll be interesting. I think next Monday's show is going to be fun because we're going to have a lot of takes coming out of that. We'll be doing that the next 2 weekends. That's pumped. Do you have NBC4 on your internet, on your cable plan?
Yes, I very much do. NBC4, even if you don't have technically like a cable plan, that's just still one of the basic channels that comes with TVs. You might need to have
tried logging into
today.
Your account today, and it didn't work.
Maybe was it the wrong password? All right, we'll talk about that. But regardless, Bobby,
I literally looked right at what you said.
Thank God that we're having this scrimmage because it's struggle city for takes right now. And this might even feed in I don't want to feed – maybe – you don't want to talk about your camp clips rant yet that you told me about, but I still feel uncomfy about, hey, I kind of want to talk about training camp. I kind of want to have this take about this player, take about that. Again, because we're just so hidden from everything. Thank God we're actually going to have this scrimmage where it's something substantially that we can talk about, and the scrimmage is going to be aired on TV.
Yes, some multiple plays in a row, because obviously I'm sharing some clips. The Giants, people are sharing clips, and –
You can't really get anything substantial from that. You can't.
That and man, like I thought it was funny, and I thought this is the perfect example. I posted a picture of Julian Love where they have tennis balls taped to his hands, and I said, it was more of a joke tweet. I was like, why does Julian Love have rocks taped to his hands? It's tennis balls, and I literally had 5 different explanations of what it was. It was one to strengthen the fingertips. The one that made the most sense was to not be grabbing in coverage and teach you to not grab in coverage. That one actually made the most sense. One to improve your catching. One, and there was total like all these different ones. It's like, okay, so most of you are wrong. Maybe one person is right. I thought that one was right, but I wasn't a DB, but I never saw a DB doing that. So I love that. And then I posted a clip of like Saquon blocking against Blake Martinez, and I don't think people understand that in 1-on-1s, it's geared for the defense, and being pushed back a yard or two in 1-on-1s isn't bad. So just an overreaction. There was one of Andrew Thomas versus Leonard Williams, and someone said that it was going to snap Andrew Thomas's back in the half. It's like, no, actually he did the hop back. It wasn't a perfect rep, but it wasn't a bad rep either.
Kept his legs under him.
Yeah, the reaction to these 1-on-1 clips has made me lose my mind. And there's bad angles, And my favorite, though, is like when Daniel Jones throws a pick to Darnay Holmes. Do we have to be more excited about Darnay Holmes catching a pick or Daniel Jones throwing a pick, or more worried about Daniel Jones throwing a pick?
Well, some people ask that as like a legitimate question where I don't know if I'm going to be excited. But also, how about when you watch a training camp clip, why not just watch the training camp clip and be like, okay, this happened, and not have to have some sort of major take from it? I don't really feel the need for that. And that's why it's kind of frustrating, but I'm really looking forward to this weekend. That's the main thing. Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this weekend where I can actually feel better about, hey, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing somewhat of a big sample size from this. So, yeah.
That's the other thing is like, we don't even have a good angle of this, No. So hopefully the scrimmage will give us a ground angle is like impossible to judge. You can't even see 3/4 of the field. I will say college football Twitter, though, I do love it. I mean, if we post a clip of Derek Dillon, Jamar Chase is retweeting us.
Yeah.
I posted one of Tay Crowder, and I mean, Giants or Bulldog or Georgia Bulldog blogs were blogging it. Their coaches were retweeting it. I mean, they just go crazy. College football Twitter is nuts. The most interaction I've ever gotten on tweets was like the first weekend of college football last year where I decided to like tweet videos. And it was the most interaction I ever got.
I get a lot of interaction from Cowboys Twitter. Whenever I mention Jason Garrett in a tweet, more Cowboy fans find it than actual Giants fans. And also Taco Charlton retweeted me once. Great first round pick for them.
Why did he tweet you?
Because I made a video of him. So when I downloaded that app that Bobby and I use for our videos, I downloaded that app and I wanted to try out and practice on a game myself before I actually covered the Giants last year. So it was the 49er Cowboy preseason game from last year, and I covered that, and I did it just the first half. I was like, hey, here's a little clip of Tony Pollard just in case Ezekiel Elliott holds out. And Taco Charlton absolutely like murdered Nick Mullins. And I'm like, all right, I have to make a video of this. And he retweeted it.
Right on. I asked if DeMarcus Lawrence was a scumbag because he hit a kicker after a play. So we get interaction by clipping Cowboys defensive ends, even though Taco is now with the Dolphins.
He might be gone. He might not even have a job, pretty sure.
No job Taco is what they call him. All right, do you have anything else? Ryan Conley has been out, which is alarming, but with Joe Judge in charge, we really have no clue because they don't give us any information on injuries.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough because he's coming off the torn ACL. He almost had the whole season to recover from it, but that's tough. It's a tough situation, especially when I thought that we were hearing that maybe he was flying around and now he's been inactive for a few days. Patricia Train I actually asked her directly, like, can we have some sort of pure, like, concrete Ryan Conley update? Because I feel everything has been so vague and it's been so ambiguous. So we got a concrete Ryan Conley update from Patricia Train, which he's been out for a couple days. I won't give all of it away. And also Darius Slayton left the practice field today. But because, again, Joe Judge isn't letting us know anything, we don't exactly know why. I just hope it's not a hamstring or a lower body injury, which odds are it is a lower body injury since that's why you would leave practice this time of year.
I mean, it could be an upper body too.
I would rather have that than a lower body injury, 100%.
Well, speaking of odds, Justin, my name is Bobby Skinner, and I'm telling you that there are 100 million reasons why you should listen up. DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports, is celebrating the return of sports by giving away up to $100 million in prizes to all their customers, including one lucky winner who will take home a $1 million cash prize. To claim your share of up to $100 million in instant giveaways, all you have to do is download the app and sign up using promo code JOMBOY, not John, Jom, M as in Michael. Then enter DraftKings free football survivor pool. Yes, it is really that easy to claim your share of up to $100 million in instant giveaways and put yourself in the running to win a $100 million cash prize. While the top prize is reserved for one lucky winner, everyone who signs up and enters DraftKings free football survivor pool will receive an instant bonus prize of at least $5 in value upon entering. While you're in the app, don't forget to check out all the great odds boosts and promotions DraftKings Sportsbook is offering every day to celebrate this week's baseball and golf action. Get a little basketball in there too. You know, Lakers, Luka, he's been hot. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code JOHNBOY to claim your share of $100 million in instant giveaways and put yourself in the running for the $1 million cash top prize. That's promo code JOHNBOY to get your share of $100 million in prizes only at DraftKings. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey only. Other team terms and conditions and restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Luka had a nice little Euro step.
This
past
weekend was
weekend.
hot. And Paul
Fundamental
George,
basketball.
I'm so out on Paul George. What a loser Paul George is. Consistently getting single points, and the nerve that guy had to call himself playoff P. I mean, he's a loser. He is a loser. It's a first-round game. You are heavily favored. You have Kawhi. Possession by possession, just carry your team. Marcus Morris making big shots. Lou Williams. And you're just a loser. Paul George is a flat-out loser, Justin.
What's the series at right now?
It's tied 2-2.
2-2.
And you know
All right,
what?
that's
Porzingis was out a game. The first game, he got kicked out. Dallas isn't even at full strength.
Fun series. Excited to see how it's going to wrap up.
I thought it would be the best series in the first round. I'm glad Heat Pacers is over. What a boring series. I'm glad my Nets are done. I could finally move on. I can finally actually move on to the Kevin Durant era. For me, I get lost in every Nets game. So now I'm glad it's over. We suck. Trade Spencer Dinwiddie. Find a coach, win me a ring, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and then get out. Win me a ring so I can say my Nets are champions, and I can always claim over my friends my team's won a championship, and then just move on, Kevin Durant, Kyrie.
Bet the over on DraftKings for Luka next game. Use code JOMBOY, JOMBOY.
I wonder if you can do over on points, rebounds, assists. With Luka, it'd probably be 70 or something like that.
Boom.
All right, Justin, let's do some Giants over-unders. I feel
Sponsored by DraftKings.
Yeah, by DraftKings.
We have this authority to say that the segment's sponsored by DraftKings.
It is. It is sponsored by DraftKings. I literally did a minute ad sponsoring it. All right, Justin, let's start at the top. And I took some notes on this. Let's start with wins, though. 6.5. Now, this is your first time listening. I am of the mindset I cannot predict myself to be a loser. And I feel like I'm a part of the Giants. Justin, I'm a 16-0 type of guy. Will you win every game? So at 6.5, I'm going over, and I don't think that's super unrealistic either. I get we have a super tough schedule, but the offense should be improved. The defense should be improved. Hopefully it's not as bad. We can't be as not healthy as last year. We can't count on full health, but we can't be as unhealthy as we were on offense last year. So I'm going over.
Yeah, it honestly does depend on how we can do escaping the first 4 games of the season, which that's Steelers, Bears, 49ers, Rams, or even Cowboys. That's the first 5 games of the season. Very, very tough defenses, very, very tough secondaries, especially in the first 4 games. If we can escape those first 5 games, especially the 4 games, and we're at somewhere maybe around 2-2, then you feel good about where you can go after that, because then we have a couple divisional games against Washington, Philly, Tampa. You feel like is a winnable team. I feel like that's a winnable game, Bobby. And then you have Cincy, Arizona, Cleveland to kind of finish off the season in there as well with some other divisional matchups. Bobby, I'm going to be an optimist too, because DraftKings, your line was 6.5. DraftKings line is also at 6.5. I'm going to say over and give me 7. Over.
7-9. That would actually feel good, even though we'd hate it in the moment.
Well, I mean, we would maybe make the playoffs with this new playoff format. We have no idea what that's going to look like.
Dude, I Jones for a playoff game so bad. Just to have that feeling of like do or die.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love that feeling to not be week 13, where there's do or die, where it's like we have to win out.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going over. I will never predict my team to lose because I'm a winner. So we'll get that one out of the way. The rest of them, I'm going to be as realistic as possible. Let's start with the QB, Justin. I put Daniel Jones over under at touchdowns at 30.
Yeah, DraftKings has him over under 25.5.
Yeah, well, this is what I did. I formulated it. I know the Giants better than DraftKings. That's just facts.
Whoa. Fact, not opinion.
Exactly. And it doesn't care about your feelings. Daniel Jones, 30 touchdowns. If he were at the same rate of 2019, it was 2 touchdowns per game, which landed him at 32. That included a 5-touchdown game against Washington, a 4-touchdown game against the Jets, the Lions, and I feel like there was one other 4-touchdown. No, there wasn't.
No.
There was Tampa. He had 4 total, but 2 were rushing, and this we're only going passing for this. Justin, I think Daniel Jones will definitely be better this season, but I'm going to go under, and I think it's slightly. And I wanted to put it at the 30 number because I want to put high expectations on it, but I'm going to go under. I see him being somewhere in that 20s, like the 26 to 28, 29 area. We had a lot of times we went to the passing game in the 1-yard line. I think Garrett is really going to try and pound it in those goal line situations with Saquon. We don't really have like the size for goal line fades or anything, so we'll be wasting plays on that kind of stuff. But I really think they're going to try and pound it in at the goal line area. So I'm gonna go under, but just barely.
Yeah, I'm going over DraftKings. I'm hammering that, the 25.5, but I am going under 30. So I guess you would also go over that 25.5 mark as well. I agree. It's not a matter of if Daniel Jones doesn't eclipse 30 touchdowns this year, it doesn't mean he's having a bad year. I mean, Lamar Jackson, you usually lead the NFL with around 35, 36 touchdowns per year. That's usually around the NFL leader. So
or Patrick Mahomes had like 90, 2 years ago.
Well, I think Lamar led the league. Didn't Lamar lead the league?
Yeah, Mahomes was out last year. Lamar did lead. I don't know what his number was.
No, but overall, even if you hit 40, I mean, if Daniel Jones is throwing for around 30 touchdowns, I mean, I also don't. We're not judging quarterback performances based off of how many touchdowns you throw.
I do.
There's
touchdowns are important.
There's a lot of other things that go into quarterback play. I mean, if Saquon Barkley is pounding the ball in at the 1-yard line 15 times this year, and that's taking away 5 touchdowns from Daniel Jones. I mean, you have to look at things situationally, Bobby. Golden Tate could be tackled inside the 5-yard line 10 times this year. Juju Smith-Schuster 2 years ago was tackled inside like the 3-yard line.
I'm playing the other end of that where guys have high touchdown numbers.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, touchdowns are random. It's like, well, you got to throw the ball in the end zone and make it complete.
Well, they kind of are, because like I was.
Yeah, but
you
can't say that on the high when it's on the high end because the person is throwing it in the end zone at the biggest moments. I get if the guy has a down year, and like, hey, they just ran the ball in a little more. But when guys' numbers are high, like that's the goal of playing quarterback is throwing it into the end zone for touchdowns.
I wonder if they have, because they have Saquon Barkley rushing yards. It was very, very tough. I mean, if you even want to just look up New York Giants season player prop bets for 2020, it's very hard to find sometimes.
They don't have very many, so I did my own. I used math. I didn't go randomly. I calculated guys' career averages, included like possible games missed. So we'll see.
But for example, so Bobby, let's even do this right now. Saquon Barkley had 11 touchdowns his rookie year. Let's just say over under 12.5 for this year. I kind of want to say over. 12.5 rushing touchdowns.
How many did he have last year?
He had last year, I could check on that right now. He had last year 6. 13 games.
I could see it being over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all right, so Daniel Jones next on the list. 10.5 fumbles, and that I'm including. Not just fumbles lost, just fumbles. He had 18 in 2019. Obviously, it was the biggest issue of his game. So I put it at 10.5. I hate to sound like an optimist, but I'm going under. I feel like him cutting that number in half is not realistic. Go look at the league leader in fumbles each year, it's the best QBs in the game. Like it's very like you'll get some random ones in there, but it's usually some of the best QBs in the game. You look at their year after, and it's different. We want to talk about touchdowns being random. Fumbles can be kind of random. He's put in the work. He's put in the work for ball security. He's gotten stronger. We talked with Anthony Boone, the different types of drills he used to hold on to the ball. I don't think him cutting that number in half is crazy, especially when you consider that we don't have the least productive left tackle in the game playing for us, where Andrew Thomas is going to slide in there with his pocket presence. That makes it better. So I think he can cut that number in half, Justin.
Yeah, I'm going to say over, simply because I do think that he's still going to be a quarterback that's going to hold on to the ball for, he's not going to really cut down that number in terms of his average time to throw. And I really do think, Bobby, these defenses that were going up in these, especially towards the start of the season, it's going to be rough. I think it's going to take time for this offense to really get going and really get clicking. New offensive scheme. I mean, I made a funny little clip of like a minute and a half of Edmond Ingram, Saquon Barkley, and Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard all saying, all we're doing is learning the new system. So that's what they're doing. Probably going to be it may be a rough start to the season offensively, and that may be manifested in Daniel Jones possibly fumbling the ball a few times.
Well, I want to look at one of our former QBs, Eli Manning. You may have heard of him. And you know what? Eli held onto the ball, until these past 4 years. But, starting in 27, 13, that's over. 5, under. 13, over. And then 7, 8, 5, 7, 7. And then in 2015, he had 11. Like, Eli wasn't like he had some fumble issues at times. So
what years were you reading off of, by the way?
I started from 2007, where he had.
Oh, okay.
Let me go from his second year, where he started every game.
Yeah, because basically
9,
you
13,
need to
5, 13, 7, 8, 5, 7, 7, 11, and then 2016, 7, 11, 7, 3.
Yeah, because basically you need to take out 2014 to.
Yeah, the first time around, I didn't read any of that. But before that, he held on. Like, he was known for holding onto the ball and being a gunslinger. So, and, he had times where he fumbled the ball. So,
Carson Wentz is also a guy that I've seen on Twitter. He gets a lot of hate for fumbling the ball. His rookie year, he had 14. He jumped down to 9 in 18. 17 and 18 jumped down to 9. Carson Wentz in 2019 had 16 fumbles. So that's where a lot of Giants fans on Twitter, you want to point to Daniel Jones fumbling the ball where Carson Wentz fumbles too. So it could be random. I still say over 10.
All right. Because someone doesn't believe in our franchise QB. I'm going to sick the listeners against you. All right. I'm interested to see where you stand on this one. Saquon, 1,300 rushing yards. In 2018, he had 1,307. 2019, he had 1,003, but he also missed 3 games. So he was close to on pace, but not exactly. He averages in his career about 80 yards per game, which at that rate for 16 games would be 1,275, so 25 less. Both seasons, he's averaged 16 carries per game, Justin. If at the same average, he were added 2 carries per game, that would put him at 1,480. I'm going over. I think rookie Saquon at 1,307 yards, I think that is definitely doable. And I think he'll get 2 more carries per game from Jason Garrett. I really do. You can say the whole playing from behind passing, but you know what? We were playing from behind in all those games. So, like, at that rate, he was able to get 16. Hopefully he's healthy this year. He doesn't have a stretch where he's – has a 1-yard game against the Jets and just those bad games. So I'm going over on this one.
Yeah, and DraftKings Sportsbook is pretty similar to you as well, 12.50.5 on their sportsbook. DeMarco, I'm going to read you DeMarco Murray's 2014 stat line. And I'm not saying that Saquon Barkley is almost going to have a year where he rushes around 2,000 yards. But if there is a season that I look at in the past where I think this is where I think this Giants team is building up towards, this is it. 2014 in DeMarco Murray in 16 games had 392 attempts, 1,845 yards, 13 touchdowns with a yards per attempt average of 4.7. DeMarco Murray also caught almost 60 balls, and I didn't know he was that much of a pass catcher, which is kind of insane. But that's just an insane season. And what you had that season is really, Dallas controlling the time of possession from the start of the game to the finish. Did not have an exceptional defense that year. They went 12-4, efficient passing from Romo, pounding the rock with DeMarco Murray. So, Bobby, I'm also going to agree with you and go 1,300 and over 1,300 because if the Giants are doing it right and if they are playing to the strengths of their team, they're playing like having like that 2014 Dallas offense where it's an efficient passing offense and then pounding the rock with Saquon Barkley, who I view as a much more talented back than DeMarco Murray.
Yes, for sure. All right, and another one with Saquon. I put the over-under for catches at 70 because his rookie year he had 91. This past season with Daniel Jones he had 52, so I put it at the median of that, over-under 70 catches for Saquon Barkley.
I go under.
Yeah.
I go under. I think there's too many mouths to feed on this Giants offense. Now, I'm not going much under. Saquon Barkley could have a season of 60 catches, and that's still an amazing pass catching season for a running back. But I think with the acquisition of Dion Lewis here, there's a chance that Dion Lewis could be taking some third down carries or third down appearances, third down snaps away from Saquon Barkley, which I'm not hating it. There's a chance that they could have Dion Lewis and Saquon Barkley on the field at the same time and intentionally target Dion Lewis. If we're talking about Evan Ingram being here for a long period of time, then I think targets are going to be given to him in the intermediate part of the field instead of Saquon Barkley. And you're hoping that some of these wide receivers can be relied on a little bit more, including Darius Slayton, not just being hey, I'm going to throw the ball to you 20 yards down the field, and maybe we can rely on him a little bit more past the sticks, just not as far down the field besides just posts and streaks. So I think there's a lot of targets to be had on this offense, and Saquon Barkley may see a catch hit in that regard.
Right. Yeah, I'm going under as well, echoing there's just so many mouths to feed. Whether, the three wide receivers, Ingram, Caden Smith. The fact that Jones, when he goes through his progressions, he likes to check back to the tight end. And in this Garrett offense, I think that will be installed a little more. That being said, they're going to want to get Saquon involved in the passing game. So I do think there's going to be some more design stuff for Saquon. I think Saquon's going to line up out wide a little more often. Like there's a play against Arizona, third down, and Jones takes a sack. But if he would have looked to his left, Saquon was wide up for a slant. And honestly, it could have went for a touchdown. You think about that Chicago game where he misses the catch on the wheel route where that could have been a touchdown. So I think Saquon's going to have a much better receiving year, like more effective receiving targets. But I do have the number under 70. I think it's just too much with so many mouths to feed on this offense.
Yeah, totally.
All right, next, let's hit up some of the wide receivers. Darius Slayton. I got a little aggressive with his number with touchdowns, 9.5. He had 8 last year in 14 games. Justin, where do you stand on the 9.5 with Slayton?
Yeah, here's the thing, because we just said on his PPP, could we see more than double-digit touchdowns? And we were like, yes, why not? 66% of the snaps, he had 8 touchdowns last year, and that 8 touchdowns last year was 15th in the league, and it was tied. I think it was tied for ninth in the league. Kenny Golladay led the league last year with 11 touchdowns, and he stood on his own with that 11 touchdowns. But, Bobby, you still just get the feeling now, regardless of, whether receiving touchdowns, again, it could be random, and also our receivers just not or is a singular receiver not catching as many touchdowns as maybe they used to be. Think of Calvin Johnson catching a lot of touchdowns. Julio Jones has never been a touchdown guy to begin with, but I still want to say that the Giants are really, really going to go to Slayton. They're going to go to him in the red zone. He's going to get his big plays. He's going to have his touchdown receptions of over 25-plus yards. He had 5 of them last year. So, Bobby, what's our line? Did we say 9.5? Optimist. I'm going over. It's stupid. Kenny Golladay led the league last year with 11, which basically we're saying that Darius Slayton is almost going to lead the National Football League in touchdown receptions.
But that's got to be a down year for touchdowns, isn't it?
I'm looking just based off of 2019. I was shocked when I was talking with the guys from BDGE, and they was like, "Oh, well, that's absurd. Vegas would never have that kind of line." But also, we're not Vegas. We're a Giants podcast. So there's that. But I'm trying to think realistically, but also somewhat of a Giants fan, and I'm gonna say over.
Okay, I'm going over too. I mean, the year before, Antonio Here,
Yeah.
let me go the year before.
2018.
Antonio Brown with 15. I mean, you had 9 guys in double digits, and then 3 more guys at 9. I'm going to go over. The more that I look at this, I think I'm being a little too optimistic. But I think in this Air Coryell offense, which is predicated on having someone deep to stretch the field and open things underneath, I think Jones, who likes to sling the ball downfield, Slayton is the guy to do it. We saw Tate get some of those, but I think this year it's going to be more Slayton-based on those deep taking shot kind of things. I mean, he had 3 double-digit touchdowns games where he had 2. You can see him throwing a 3 touchdown game in there. And he's pretty good at yak, where these guys underneath, if teams are focusing on that Y stick that Jason Garrett and Jason Witten love so much, that opens things up for a guy to catch, a dig route and to just seam it up the middle. So I think I'm going over. I think this is the one I might be a little most over optimistic on, but I already wrote down over, so I'm going over.
Yeah. Because there's also a chance that Sterling Shepard could see a rise in his touchdowns this year. And I think it's simply because if we utilize Sterling Shepard more with quick out routes, he's a smart guy that he can find holes in zones. We already talked about this with his PPP. There's a chance that his touchdown total can rise, which as a result, if one guy's touchdown total is rising, another guy's is going down.
Yeah. I feel a little optimistic now to say it. All right, let's go with one that I'm going to go under. Golden Tate, 65 catches under. You look at his career, and you would think this was a crazy under, Justin. But I looked at his 6 games where he had the trio of Shepard and Slayton with him, and at a 16-game rate, that would have been 51 catches for him, a little over 3 catches per game. You add Ingram in there, you add Saquon pounding the rock in, and get having him more involved, Caden Smith. It's another one of those mouths to feed, and I think he's the number 3 wide receiver on this team. And to say over on the number 3 wide receiver and the hope that Ingram and Caden Smith are involved and Saquon's involved, I'm going under with Tate.
Yeah. Again, mounts to feed. And I'm looking at passes completed last year because we're saying, Saquon Barkley may be catching 55 to 60 balls. We're saying that Darius Slayton may be also catching some 60 catches as well. I actually got some hate on Twitter today because I said 60 catches. And I think a lot of people are expecting higher. If Sterling Shepard's on the field, we're expecting 85 to 100 catches from him. So somebody's going to have to go down. And, typically, passes completed. Matt Ryan led the league last year with 408. Kyler Murray was 10th with 350. So you're thinking that Jones will hopefully be around maybe that 350 mark of passes completed. And there's so many mounts to feed. So Tate, it's going to be close because really there's been 1 year of Tate's career. 2013, he had 64 catches. And then from 2013 all the way going towards even 2018 when he was with 2 teams, he had 74 balls caught. And he's been on the field for 15, 16 games every single year. So it's going to be tough. I think Tate's role is going to continue to change, being another year older and with this Giants offense. I'm also going to go slightly under.
Yeah, like you said, I think he's the odd man out with those where Slayton is going to be the guy to stretch the field, get those long catches. And then Shepard, who is the next category, is going to be, I feel like, the best wide receiver on the team, the best, the guy that Jones trusts the most to get out of his routes and stuff. So let's hit it with Shepard. I put him at 950 yards. Justin, if you look at those trio numbers, that would have put him at 850 last year. His 2019 pace, if you just go by his yards per game, would have been 921. His pace the year where Odell was in and out of the lineup, or not that year, but the year before, his pace was 1,064, the game where he missed some games due to migraines.
Yeah.
Justin, he's the best wide receiver on the team, and we have a QB who we trust. He's the best wide receiver on the team. Concussions are random. Okay, I don't think concussions are this guy's a chronic concussion getter, unless it's someone that just leads with their head and stuff. And the concussions that Shepard had, one was on a blocking play, and the second was he just landed and he hit his head on a deep ball. So I'm not going to predict that he's going to get concussions. Edmond Ingram, you can play the I don't trust him to stay healthy. But Shepard has played 16 games, two out of the 4 years he's been in there. So I'm not going to predict him to not play 16 games, and I'm going to go over because I think he's going to be the best wide receiver on this team. I don't think it's going to be much over, but I expect our number one wide receiver to get 1,000 yards, and that's what I'm basing it off of.
Yeah, I'm for that, and believe me, you know that I've been the biggest Sterling Shepard fan. Pretty much, I think out of all Giants podcasters, I think I've hyped up Sterling Shepard the most this offseason. Bobby, even if he catches 85 balls, I really do think he's going to average around 10 to 10 and a half yards per reception. He's no longer averaging 13 and 12 yards per reception like he was in 2018 and 2017. So that year that you were talking about, how he was struggling with migraines in 2017, he was averaging 12 and a half yards per reception. So that's I'm seeing really a 2.5 yard difference there. So if he catches 85 balls, he averages around 10 yards per reception. That's 850 yards. I'm going over. I think Sterling Shepard, he's going to get a lot of catches. Just don't think the yards per reception. He's not going to be a big play guy. That's what Tate's going to do. That's what Slayton's going to do. So I think the yards per reception is going to be the one of the reasons why, if he does play 16 games, why he doesn't get past 950 yards.
All right, we're running long, so let's go rapid fire. We have 5 more. Edmond Ingram, I put the number at 650 yards. My notes on it, he had 52 yards per game, which is the median of his career, whereas 46 his rookie year, 58 this year, 52 in the year middle. That feels right. And at 52 yards per game, 12 and a half games would get him to that 650 yards. So I'm going to go under on the games. I'm going to go 12 games or less. He still has a screw in his foot. Yeah. I'm going under on that. Prove to me he could play. If he plays 16 games, this is an easy over. But I'm not. He hasn't played a full 16 games his entire in 1 year. So
yeah, Bobby, the fact that screw is still in his foot, and I've been talking with some of my fantasy friends, that's bad. I mean, usually guys, they get that screw taken out of their foot, and then they're somewhat on a good track. The fact that it's still in his foot it's bad news for him. It's a bad sign for him. I wish I kind of really knew enough about the health ramifications of things when we recorded his PPP. I'm going under 650 yards, which I think that's your over-under for yards. And then if it's 12 games, I'm going under 12 games as well. Regardless, there's going to be a stretch of the middle of the year. I didn't do an
over-under on the games. I said 12 and a half games would get him to 650 yards at 52 yards per game. So in my mind, I'm saying less than 12 games, which makes him less than 650 yards.
Which I'm 100% with you. That screw in his foot. I know we want to be optimistic Giants fans, but we're also going to be here to tell you real facts. Bad news. Screw in his foot is bad news.
All right. Leonard Williams, 4.5 sacks before people laugh and say half a sack. In 2015, he had 3 sacks. In 2016, he had 7 sacks. In 2017, he had 2 sacks. In 2018, he had 5 sacks. This last year, he had a half a sack. So 2 out of the 5 years of his career, he's been over. I'm still going under.
Over.
A lot of guys in the middle. He didn't finish last year. We got some guys on the edge we like. Not anybody we like super trust, but guys we like. I'm going under. And I don't think it's too much of an indictment, but I'm going under with this number.
Over. PFF New York Giants put out a stat today that I had some inappropriate action happening at the bottom of my pants. QB hits among interior defensive linemen since 2015. Aaron Donald 93, Leonard Williams with 82. 82. What's 93 minus 82? That's 11. There's a difference of 11 QB hits between Aaron Donald and Leonard Williams since 2015. Third place, Fletcher Cox with 64. Fletcher Cox with just 64. So you want to know what, Bobby? He had an amazing pace of pressure last year on a 16-game rate. He suited up 8 games for us last year. He had a nice rate of collecting consistent pressure. And there was a few games where he barely even collected snaps. But the games that he was in, he had an impact in. I think getting the consistent pressure is more correlated to getting sacks the next year. Give me over 4.5 sacks on Leonard Williams.
All right, speaking of someone that's like Fletcher Cox, Dexter Lawrence, 9.5 combined tackles for a loss and sacks. In 2019, he had 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, which makes him at 5.5. I looked at Dalvin Tomlinson. He had 10.5. I expect Dexter Lawrence to become the best interior offensive lineman or defensive lineman on this team. In 2 out of his 3 years in college, he would have been on pace for this. 1 year, well over. I have big expectations for Dexter Lawrence. Come in. He's been working out with some of the best defensive linemen in the country. I'm going over on this one.
Really depends on what his snap share is. I mean, we saw all fluctuating things between those our big 3 interior defensive linemen. I'm going to say under because I'm expecting Dalvin Tomlinson to get more snaps this year. Leonard Williams, he's going to be on the field. I really do think that he's our best interior defensive lineman right now. He's the best pass rusher, I think, in my opinion. So Dexter Lawrence, his snap share may take a hit this year, not because he's not performing, but because Dalvin Tomlinson, he's on the contract year. And I think they may want to give him some shots. This new coaching staff may want to give him some more shots, increase that snap percentage from 55%. I'm going slightly under.
All right. Blake Martinez, 140 tackles. He's been over every year of the last 3 years, around 144 to 148. I'm going under. I think teams are going to pass on us a little more than they probably did Green Bay. I think they're going to try and attack our corners and see what they can do. The big boys that we just mentioned up front, I think they're going to wrap up some tackles that, Blake Martinez would have got in Green Bay. I think Peppers and those type of safeties with Love, McKinney, they have that reign to be aggressive, where Peppers was on pace for over 100 tackles last year.
Yeah.
Conley, hopefully if he's healthy, he's a guy that's going to come and clean up. So Martinez will play it right, and Connolly will come from the backside. So I'm going to go under.
Yeah, I think the safeties, Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, Jabril Peppers, they're all going to be involved, and they're all going to be getting a lot of tackles. You already said Jabril Peppers was on pace for over 100 tackles, which I just learned that a couple days ago. I was doing some digging on Pro Football Reference. Still think Blake Martinez is probably still going to get over 125 tackles, which is still wild. Still crazy when you think about it. But 140, that's wild. Definitely under. Okay.
And then the last one, corners. 6.5 interceptions. Are you going over or under?
Corners. No, this is strictly corners. Are we counting safeties as cornerbacks?
No safeties.
Here?
Only corners.
Under.
Under? I think last year, Janoris Jenkins was our only corner, and he got 4 interceptions. Bradbury, he got 3 interceptions for Carolina last year. I think Holmes is going to get some picks this year. I don't think, even if he struggles, I think he's the guy that's going to get picks. I mean, we've seen that out of training camp from the, we haven't been able to watch. But I think one thing with Holmes is that he will get interceptions. He may struggle, but he'll get interceptions. But I'm looking at the year before. I mean, our corners, 2 from Janoris Jenkins and 1 from B.W. Webb. Oh, man.
We're also playing a lot of man coverage this year, too. So, you're hoping that you're hoping that the wide receiver separation that the opposing offenses are going to get are less because we're playing tight man coverage towards the line of scrimmage. You're hoping that's the case. So
screw it,
Bobby,
I'm going over.
You're going over? Well,
I already wrote it down, over.
Our cornerback number 2 right now, that's going to be a thing that we have to get answered during these scrimmages. Because, oh my gosh.
All right. We have an interview with Patricia Train. Very nice. I was glad to get her on the show. We talked a little bit about her book. We'll put the links for that and everything. Don't forget to do that, Justin, when you're editing.
Yep.
Put the links in it. Gave some camp stuff. So a lot of fun. Here's Patricia Traina. All right. We now welcome onto the program a very respected beat writer for Sports Illustrated. She's been on the beat for some time. Patricia Traina. Patty, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. How are you?
Good. Glad to finally get you on. It's been I'll start it off with this. How's camp been? I know it's a whole different year for you. What's different? What are some of the new challenges you guys have with these new regulations?
Well, it's definitely been challenging because, you have to social distance, obviously. You have to wear a mask, both things that we're not used to doing. And the biggest thing from a reporting perspective is you can't get as detailed as you'd like to because, that's just league rules. They don't want you tweeting out, for example, personnel packages or alignments or all the good stuff we used to be able to share with all the readers and listeners. So that's been a little tricky and, but we're adjusting. We're doing the best we can. And hopefully the coverage is stacking up for everybody.
Yeah, so Patty, once again, thank you for coming on, and also thank you for all the work that you do despite the difficult circumstances that are happening right now of being a Giants beat reporter. I want to first ask you about your book. You're coming out with the book. It's called The Men and the Moments That Made the New York Giants, The Big 50. There's also a foreword by Ernie Accorsi in there. So especially someone, I also host the Giants History podcast. I'm really looking forward to diving into that book, reading it, and possibly talking about it on that show. But why don't you tell us about it? Give it a little promo.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a book called The Big 50, the New York Giants Men and Moments, as you said. And basically, I went through every single year, every era of the New York Giants franchise history, picked out 50 of the top men and moments who made the Giant franchise what it is today. It was a very hard task. A lot of, I probably could have done a thousand easily men in moments, because there's just been so much in the Giants 95 plus year history. But so it has pictures. We were able to get some pictures. We were able to get some firsthand reporting, some stories that I don't think are either widely known or known at all. And just what I tried to do is I tried to create a really interesting and fun read for everybody. At the same time, I know I rely on a lot of historical stuff when I write. I do a lot of comparison, and all this stuff that I talk about, in my articles and stuff. You can find some of this stuff in the book, and it was just a real fun project for me.
Yeah, it sounds like, and Justin said that he does the Giants history, and what he did is like Sal, or what's his name, Justin, where you read a chapter, go through it, tell stories. So we're definitely looking forward to that one, and I know Justin will look forward to going through each person and remembering what's an example of somebody that's in there. You don't have to give a number, you don't have to spoil, but like, who's somebody that maybe people want to think about that might be in there, if we can spoil a little bit.
Well, I have, if we're talking about like the real old days, Mel Hein is in there. Frank Gifford is mentioned. Oh gosh, I tried to get as many guys in there. There's so many in there. Dick Lynch, I know, was mentioned. Some of the more recent guys, obviously Eli is in there. The Giants offensive line, there's a chapter devoted to the Giants offensive line called Eli's Guys, which I think a lot of people are going to like, because that group was quite the group of characters. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy that chapter. Harry Carson's in there. LT, of course, is in there. Sam Huff is in there. Oh gosh, it's just so many, and I feel like I've left people out, and if I did, I didn't mean to, but that just goes to show you how deep this franchise's history really is. And like I said, it was just a fun read, and also for me, considering that I've been covering this team for over 20 years, it was actually a good lesson for me to go back and learn the history the way that I did with all the research. So now I have a better understanding, a better appreciation, especially about, like the 1927, the first year that they won any kind of championship, the founding of the team, and just all that stuff is just, was just so much fun to uncover and learn about.
Yes, you mentioned a couple names I didn't know, so I'll definitely learn. But the listeners can't see how much my face brightened up when you mentioned Eli's guys, because those five from Deal to McKenzie, I always say those five are my football heroes in the way they were stick together and be like a true brotherhood. So I definitely think I might have to like skip forward to that chapter and then get the rest later. But you definitely brighten my day that I know that those guys are in there and as a group like they would like to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I didn't get to talk to all of them. Unfortunately, I talked to, I want to say about three-fifths of them. And, it's funny, when I was putting the chapter together, they were telling me the stories and the pranks and the stuff they used to do. And here I am, I'm trying to decide, okay, should I put this in? Should I not put this in? Because they really like to break each other's horns, back in the day. Yeah. But that just goes to show you how tight-knit they were, that they were able to get away with all that. And, they also brought Eli into, the mix. They would pull pranks on him and he would pull pranks on them. And it was just, it was just such a brotherhood. And just, I think that chapter in itself, and it is a fun chapter, it just kind of gives you an overview of just how tight that locker room was, especially during that 2007, 2008 time period.
Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. but to the guys that are on the field now. So obviously your guys' rules are a little more restrictive, so we obviously have to dance around that a little bit. But I want to talk about some players and some people names that have been coming out that have been surprising. And Patty, the name that I've seen that has been the most surprising, I mean, if you ask me, 5 guys I wouldn't expect to be hearing about, one of them's Devontae Downs, that inside linebacker. And there's, we've heard that he's getting reps out there. One, is he really out there next to Martinez? And two, I mean, what is he flashing that has got him out there with that first group?
Well, what's interesting about Devontae Downs, we had the inside linebacker coach on the call today, Kevin Shearer, and I asked him about him. I said to him, look, this is a kid who in his final year in college had suffered a knee injury. I said, then he came out in the draft. He was a 7th-round pick of the Vikings. I said, did it take him 2 years to really bounce back from that? Because, we hear about ACLs and knee injuries and all that stuff and how it can take up to 2 years for a guy to really come back to his pre-injury self. And the coach didn't even know that. He says, oh, I didn't even know he was injured till you told me that. But kind of what I'm getting at is I suspect with Devontae Downs, that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't stick around with Minnesota. You look at his film, and we did a film study on him on Giants country that's up now. And, we saw flashes and special teams of a guy who had instincts, a guy who had, quickness, a guy who found himself around the ball. Limited snaps on the defense, but you saw enough to make you think, okay, maybe this guy can line up at inside linebacker and show that sideline to sideline speed that you need and, sniff balls out and anticipate, potential plays out of the backfield and all that stuff. So just a guy who's really smart and who just seems to have taken to this defense like a duck in water.
And speaking of instincts and quickness and also guys coming off of torn ACL, I want to stick within the same depth chart of interior linebacker and talk about Ryan Conley. I feel like there's been scattered maybe updates and not really maybe a clear update on Ryan Conley and how he's adjusting back from his torn ACL and how he's adjusting back onto the field. I know the last couple days he's been he's been off the practice field, on the practice field. What maybe can you give us on Ryan Conley? Some thoughts about how he's looking out on the field?
Well, I'll be honest with you. He's a little bit of a question mark right now. He hasn't practiced since last Friday. He initially, we were told by Joe Judge that, it was kind of a maintenance type of day, that they wear the GPS tracking devices and they use that data to determine when to back off on a guy versus when to allow them to go. But, he didn't practice Friday. They had Saturday off. They had a walkthrough practice on Sunday. He didn't take part in that, and he didn't take part in today's practice. That's really a 4-day stretch, or 3 practices in a 4-day stretch that he was missing. So I have to wonder if something's maybe is brewing there. Did he have some kind of setback? Is he experiencing some soreness? I mean, by now you would have thought that he would be rested up and ready to go, but he hasn't been out there. And quite honestly, I don't know what's going on there because Joe Judge has been very, generic and very secretive about some of the injuries that they have had. So I just have my suspicions because look, if it was a case of just rest the guy, you would think one day and he would be back. And he hasn't come back yet. So what else can you conclude?
Right. So I'll stay on that because obviously, Cody Cortor's ACL. So you can't hide around that. But there has been some guys who especially it seemed like today or yesterday when people are listening to this, that there were some guys leaving the field and on the sideline. Is Joe Judge really keeping the cards that tight to his chest that it's just a guy so? Is he keeping it that tight to where a guy might be injured and might even have a 2-3 week injury and they are just keeping it that quiet?
Yeah. I mean, think about it for a minute here. Do they really have to tell anybody? I mean, they don't have to file injury reports until the first week of the season. So why give any competition coming up any kind of advantage by making you think, by saying, let's say, for example, this is hypothetical. Ryan Connolly is going to be sidelined for 3 to 4 weeks. Why would you want to give that information out now? So, it's frustrating. I get it for the fans and maybe for the media, but remember, where's Judge coming from? He's coming from the school of Belichick and Saban, and they were notorious for being very, very generic and vanilla with injuries and that sort of thing. So this is not really a surprise.
Yeah, it's good for the team, but like Patty, you told me last week, you guys weren't allowed to live tweet besides the scrimmage. As a fan, I respect it, but I'm just like dying inside. Like I need to find out what's going on. But
also when it comes to these injuries, though, I will say I would rather not hear anything than have a coaching staff like Pat Shurmur throw Sterling Shepard back out there a week after he broke his thumb. So I guess if we have to have a middle way and a middle pathway, I guess I will accept that.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, again, why create panic? I mean, sometimes guys, heal up quicker and meanwhile you've just caused people's blood pressure to go up 50 points. I mean, why do that? I mean, see where you're at when the time comes. And that's one thing Joe Judge has done a really good job of. He's done a good job of staying, and I'm going to use a Shermer term here, but staying in the moment and not getting too far ahead of himself.
Right. So a position that's wide open is that wide receiver 4 spot. And I guess you could kind of say wide receiver 4 to 5 because Cody Core is out. Who is the guy that seems to be standing out? Obviously, besides Slayton, Shepard, and Tate, and what is he doing out there? Like, what kind of play style is he using?
Well, you know what? The beauty of that receiver group is that I think it's kind of a tight competition beyond that number 3 spot. You've got Cody Core, who's looking to make his way back. I'm sorry, Corey Coleman, not Cody Core. He's on the IR.
Right.
So you've got Corey Coleman coming, trying to make his way back, and he's looked pretty good. You can barely tell that he had any kind of issue last year. And then you've got the 3 undrafted free agents, Benjamin Victor, Austin Mack, and Derek Dillon. David Sills is another guy. I mean, he's a guy that, I know intrigued me at the start of all this. And, there's another guy, Alec Bachmann, who kind of reminds me a little bit of Phil Mcconkey. I'm going back in time now here. Bobby, you might remember who I'm talking about.
I didn't get to see him, but I know the name and I know the number 80. So I bet you it really flashes the memory.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Bachmann is Phil McConkey was a high energy guy. He was a guy that I think was maybe like a 4th, a 5th receiver. He was the punt returner for that 86 championship team. And he hustled it. No matter what you asked him to do, whatever the drill was, he hustled. And, you watch the post-practice sprints and there's Alec Bachmann, hustling. He has to be the first guy. So you can just see the competitive streak. And, a lot of people say, oh, so what? It's just, sprints. But that tells you a lot about a guy's mindset. This tells you who's serious about, looking to make this team and who's, kind of just winging it.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because, like you mentioned, the 3 undrafted free agent guys, David Sills, who's a guy I liked a lot, Corey Coleman, but Bachmann's name has been popping out there, and they've even shared some clips, from the scrimmage where he got a touchdown, I believe. Today they had Jones throwing a pass to him. So it's been surprising to see that name when, going into this camp, a lot like Devontae Downs, you would have never thought that his name would be popping out.
Yeah, and it's funny, Bobby, because a lot of people got on Dave Gettleman, and I admit I didn't understand the move either at the time. I thought for sure they would dip into this deep wide receiver class in the draft, and they would take at least one guy, maybe not, first day or second day, but at least on the 3rd day. And they didn't. They waited until the draft was over to sign guys. And, you go back and you look at, what they have now. And in retrospect, you say, now it makes sense, because they obviously they liked Sills and Bachmann, both of whom were on the practice squad last year. So they were holdovers from the previous staff. And, this current staff liked these guys enough. Remember, Ty Tolbert was the receivers coach last year. So, Tolbert thought enough of these guys to say, yes, these are guys that could potentially fit into Jason Garrett's offense and what he's doing. So here they are. They have the opportunity. Now will both make the roster. I can't say that for sure. But certainly, you know, if they can produce on special teams, which is going to be their ticket, you could see one of them at least, you know, really pushing for a roster spot at the bottom of the depth chart there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about Bachmann and his hustle. You know, almost that slot that Cody Core has unfortunately left open because of his torn ACL. You know, Bachmann could be that special teams guy that slides in because he shows that effort. So I that's an awesome tidbit. I want to move to Evan Ingram for a quick second because I feel like there are certain players every summer that the Giants account and the Giants social media team that they really hype up. And I think Evan Ingram is one of those guys where we're seeing a lot of videos. We're seeing a lot of attention being given towards Evan Ingram. I think what they're really trying to do is give the confirmation to Giants fans that, hey, Evan Ingram is actually okay. So I want to ask, he still has that screw in his foot, and he's coming off the injury, and he's coming off the surgery from last season. I just want your overall thoughts, your observations. You've been there. You've seen camp. How is he looking out in the field? Is he looking full speed? And also, did he bulk up a little bit? He looks a little bit thicker this training camp.
He definitely did change his body shape a little bit. I think he looks a little sleeker. You know, I don't know, bulk is the right word, or maybe it's because muscle doesn't take up as much space as fat or whatever. But he looks sleeker for sure. And you watch him run, and you would not know that he has a screw in his foot. You know, he's moving around, no problem. You know, the thing with Evan Ingram, and I know a lot of people get down on him because of the injury issue, and I have said this, and I will continue to say this until I have no more breath in me. I believe the Giants coaching staff in the beginning didn't use him properly. I mean, if you think about it, Ingram was often asked to block a guy who was 30 to 40 pounds heavier than him. And, you know, he's a willing blocker. He's a strong kid. I don't want to take that away from him, but the laws of physics say you're just not going to win that matchup. You're just, you know, you put mass versus mass, and, you know, the heavier mass is going to anchor better. So they didn't put him more as a receiver, you know, put him in the slot, split him out wide, put him from the backfield. These are all things that this kid can do and do very well. And I never understood why, you know, we would see it in practice. You know, we would see it during the OTAs and whatnot, but we wouldn't see it in games. And I never really understood the reason for that.
Yeah, it's kind of a make or break year for him where, you know, it's just when he's in there, it's so exciting and he makes plays, and then, you know, but he just hasn't stayed healthy. So it's going to be interesting to see. Patricia, we're running low on time. We appreciate you coming on. For all our listeners, obviously make sure to go follow Patricia. We'll share all your @, at Patricia_Traina. And go check out her pinned tweet. You can get a chance to win a free copy of the book. We're definitely going to be ordering it. So I can't wait to give it a read. Patty, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm glad we were finally able to connect.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. All right, thanks again for Patricia Traina coming on. Make sure to go follow her and check out the book. Like, I'm not a big reader, but I feel like that way of like, hey, 50 people, I feel like that's an easy way to read. And, you know, I just got to get it just to read about the offensive lineman. So I'm looking forward to that book. I mean, and you got anything before we head out of here, Justin?
Yeah, that book's over 300 pages, which somebody who is now relying on getting content for Giants history, because I have Bleeding Blue. Really look forward to diving into that. Bobby Skinner, just excited for this weekend. Excited to get into this weekend. I know it's only Tuesday. Crap. It's only Tuesday.
Hey, we've got player profiles and projections all this week. We'll have another episode this week. I mean, we have you covered going up to game day. It's going to be fun.
Amen.
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, let's go Big Blue.